Alright, so now I'm going to be kicking off my rear set build on the bike. And I've got my kit pretty much all set up. I went and ordered up all of my connecting rods and levers and bolts and stuff there. That ended up being about 80 bucks. And then I got this rear set universal kit on eBay. It was also about 80 bucks or so. The only thing that sucks about this rear set kit is that this angle here is non-adjustable, it's fixed. So hopefully that doesn't give me a problem when trying to put the kit together. A lot of the other ones, the more expensive ones, allow you to adjust this angle. They have like adjustments on them. This is one just fixed piece, so hopefully that'll work out okay for me. But I've got all the pieces. Came with bolts, came with the actual pegs and whatnot. And what I'm going to be doing is, first I got to take off all of the old hardware. And I actually already took out the bolt. There's the hanger here for the exhaust, and that's where the old rear passenger peg was, and this is where the new rear set's going to be. And today I still have the original stock pegs in place with the stock brake, so got to get this taken off. Got to take this rear brake lever out. Then I'm going to be flipping this lever around the top, and then rerouting the rod and then bending it to get to the back of the rear set here on the right side. Then on the left side, this shifter will go bye-bye, and I will have this lever or this peg gone, and then put the rear peg on there, and then run the new rod along there, and then that should be good enough to do the rear set on the left side. So I'm going to get started by removing all of the stock parts. Alright, so I've got all the stock hardware removed, took off the front shifter, the front peg, and one thing I had to do is I actually had to take out the lower shock bolts to drop the swing arm so that the tire was actually sitting on the ground. That's actually, to do that was actually to give me enough clearance to get back here at this nut on the back, because the way that this rear set is set up is it actually wants you to take this bolt that came with the set, and it's supposed to go in from the back like this, and that's not really going to work out very well because I have the nut, and the way the stock nut is set up is you actually mount going this way. So I'm going to have to get a longer bolt that'll go through here. Probably the stock one would work. To go through this way, to thread it in this way, and then that way you can screw the new peg, which is this, that screws onto there like that. So that's the next step, is to get that set up correctly and then tighten down and put in place. So I did that there, and then on this side, a little more complicated. I actually had to take the exhaust tip off, which was hanging here, and then again drop the swing arm so I have access to this point here. But all the rest of the hardware, the front brake and everything, is gone, and this is set to start assembling. Alright, so I just finished using my Dremel with a round stone to grind out the hole inside here to create enough space for this new bolt to go through. And the reason I did that is because both of the bolts, the stock one that came with the bike and the new one, were both metric, but the thread size was different. So I went to the hardware store, picked up a longer bolt, so that bolt can go through here on the back side of this nut. So what I did first is I stuck the bolt in, and I was able to screw it down to make sure that it threaded. And now I'm going to put it through the opposite way to be able to screw the peg onto the end of the new bolt. You got the peg with the sleeve and the shifter arm, the washer, and then this lock sleeve, and it goes together pretty much in this order. This goes on here, then the washer on the back, then the sleeve, and the sleeve lets it sit against the frame. Okay, so I've got the exhaust back on, got the rear sets all in place. Next step now is to try to connect the brake rod, which this is the stock one. It's actually pretty long. A shorter one would be more ideal. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put some bends in this rod to go around the shock here, and then come through and connect here with the actual brake lever. So you can kind of see the difference in angle that has to be made. It's got to just do an S bend through here and then connect to here. So that's going to be my next little step, is seeing if I can get that right. One of the issues with this kit is that where the exhaust actually mounts, it doesn't give me much room for the brake pedal to actually come down. See, it hits the C-clamp there. So I'm probably going to have to start the brake up there and then full extension pretty much touching that. So I'm only going to have a little bit of space. So I'm going to have to kind of play with the setting on the brake, because this is kind of sticking out here, but that right there, I'm pushing hard, that's pretty much full stop, and that's where I want this positioning to be, down at full stop here. So I'm gonna play with that, see if I can get that right. Hopefully I have enough with the bend of this bar that I can at least get the spring to be on one side of this pin that goes in here in the lever, and yeah, hopefully it works out. I might have to cut some of that off the end, and if that doesn't work out, I'll have to find a shorter brake rod. But for the other side's all set and looks good, got the clearance I need, and I just need to actually set up my my linkage kit that I got, and hopefully all that fits together onto the shift rod there. And this one I obviously have more room to be able to set the angle down. So they may not be angled in the exact same spot, but this one will at least have enough room to go shift down and shift up. The other side, obviously, it's a rear brake, so just need to apply enough pressure to get it to stop. But getting close, almost done here. All right, there's the peg fully installed with the shifter arm. Obviously, super loose right now. But if you look down, you can see the line that it'll make to go to the actual shifter on the transmission. But there you have it. Looks good, all in place. The sleeve actually helps out a lot because there's a little bit of space between the frame and it, and the sleeve helps to hold all of the washers and slip linkage stuff here in place nice and tight. So this helps out a lot through here. And then the peg is on there nice and stiff. So this is ready to be linked up on this side. So I'm going to finish up the other side, and then I'll start working on the actual linkage. But right now, you can just spin that all the way around. So I bent the stock brake rod and was hoping that it was going to work, but it's really just not going to work. The angle that I have here on this brake lever is way too extreme. It needs to be more vertical, and also it's not getting enough leverage to actually pull for the brake pedal to actually be pulled down to pull the brake back enough. So that's not going to work. The S bend actually turned out pretty good. Pretty happy I did that. Was able to do that with just bending the rod over my knee. But what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to just order a more solid steel rod to go in there. And so I'm going to flip that vertically, measure out the length that I need, and then order it from the same place that I ordered my shift linkage from. So once I do that, then I'll be able to finish up the brake side. Alright, so I think I have this rear set project done. So here is the right side of the bike with the brake, and as you can see, I've got a new bent rod that I ordered from the past, along with the other rods on the other side for the shift linkage as well. What I did here is I got the rod, and unfortunately it has this bend in it, but the bend is not all that much. So I had to kind of bend the rod a little bit more to get around the shock here and line up with the actual brake lever. The offset between the rear set here and the shift lever is actually quite a bit. And when you go back here, you can kind of see how much space is between the shift lever and the brake lever there. It's a lot of space. Ideally, it'd be better to have a little bit more of a bend in the bar, but this is the longest rod I could get with the most bend that they had. So I'm making it work for me now. So what I did to make it work is I actually put the little sleeve in here, and then put a screwdriver through that to try to just bend this whole bracket just a tiny bit to give me a little bit of an angle. The bar itself is bent a little bit extra there on the end, and then it's obviously got a pretty good angle here as well. So it's working. The only issue is, of course, is that it doesn't have a retractable spring. So when you push down, the brake is activated right there, and it kind of stays there. So you're gonna have to push it back up. I'm gonna have to push it back up with my foot to release the brake. But I'll show you how it works. Boom. And that stops just before it actually hits the sleeve on the exhaust too. So it's going to be, I guess, a little bit of a manual process until I can come up with some sort of other solution that'll pull the brake back. Ideally, what I've seen some other people do is actually set up a stop up here and then run a cable, which seems like a pretty cool system, but I don't have a welder, so welding something on the bracket there is a bit much. But this works. The brake works. It just doesn't have the release, so you just gotta have to push it back up to allow the wheel to spin freely. Boom. Stops right there. And now the other side. The other side actually went a little bit better, and it looks a little bit cleaner. Works perfectly. What I first tried to do was, once I put this little L bracket on the actual shift knob there, I made sure to try to line up when I was adjusting the tie rod ends in and out of this actual rod. I tried to make the angle here on the rear set somewhat similar to the one there, and then I actually put the rod on the inside, and originally I was going to have this rod connect in this top hole here, but the rod was hitting the swing arm bolt here, and it actually just has a tiny bit of clearance now, just enough to allow this to shift back and forth. So pretty simple. I've already tested it out. It works great. So this side definitely is a little bit better of a setup. You can see how it's nice and flush, and with the foot there, the rod is just on the other side, so it's not interfering. When I was testing it, I had the rod actually on this side of the rear set, and it just sat against the foot, which was no good. So I was able to move it onto the inside when I moved this down to this lower level, and luckily this came with 2 setting spots. So that's pretty nice the way that worked out. So the rear sets are all done on the bike. And also, you may be wondering too, what about the brake light for the rear? There is no brake light for the rear. I didn't have a brake light on there before when I finished the bike. The way that setup was before, there was a switch that came down here with a spring to the old pedal. If I ever want to do a brake light, I'm gonna have to wire something else. But then, of course, there's the issue of that I have here of the brake release. So I'm not really concerned about it. When I brake, I use both brakes anyway, and the front brake that I have on the bike actuates the rear brake light. So as long as you use both brakes, you're good to go. And the rear sets here are all set. And if you're wondering where I got the products from, I got them from fasttothepast.com, and they have tons of rear set parts. All these tie rods, nuts, bolts, the rods themselves, all on there. Originally I had to measure kind of what I needed roughly. I ordered a few different sizes and then shipped back the stuff that I didn't need from them. So I'd recommend doing that to save yourself the shipping time back and forth. But they're also super friendly if you talk to them online. So rear sets on the CM400. All done. Much more comfortable riding position now. And it looks pretty sharp.